Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about REAPER. If you're here because of the drum editing and REAPER course on ProMix Academy, first off I'd like to say thank you for purchasing the course. REAPER 7 was released mid-October 2023, and for the most part all of the information in the drum editing and REAPER course remains the same. However, there is one caveat, and I'd like to address that in this video. In the drum editing and REAPER course, I show how to create fast edit and normal edit buttons in your toolbar, and those toolbar buttons change mouse modifier actions to make the process of editing drums or any other material that you need to slip edit a lot faster and a bit easier as well. Unfortunately, REAPER 7 removes several of the mouse modifiers from the actions list. The mouse modifiers are still accessible under Options, Preferences, and Mouse Modifiers. However, the ability to change those mouse modifiers on the fly using actions is no longer available. That change was made with good reason, and we do have the option now to create different keyboard layouts to support different actions for different workflows, as well as the ability to create mouse modifier overrides, but unfortunately the mouse modifier overrides only extends to the arrange view and left drag actions. As of the recording of this video, I have not found a native way without the use of external scripts to recreate that same function that we had in REAPER 6 with the mouse modifiers. However, forum user Sockmonkey has created a new script that will allow us to create mouse modifier actions once again. According to the developers, we can still trigger mouse modifiers on actions if we create our own scripts. And while I do have a little bit of experience in scripting in a few different languages, I'm far from an expert, and I don't see much point in reinventing the wheel when there's something that already works. So in today's video, we'll be looking at recreating those same actions using Sockmonkey's script. Before we get started, I'd like to give a shout out from John from REAPER blog. He's already created a video to show Sockmonkey's script in action, and he was even kind enough to give me a shout out to let me know that I may need to change my workflows in REAPER 7. If you're not already a subscriber to REAPER blog, I definitely recommend you checking out John's channel on YouTube. John also offers private lessons, and he's a very active member on our Discord server. So with all that out of the way, let's get started. So I've got a project open in REAPER 7. I'm using the stock theme, but I do have some customization in my top toolbar. If you followed along with my previous tutorials, you've probably got a few customizations in your toolbar as well. If you still got the old fast edit and normal edit buttons up here, I highly recommend you removing them in favor of the new buttons that we're going to create today. If you need to remove any buttons from the top toolbar, right-click the toolbar and go to Customize Toolbar, and in the toolbar dialog that pops up, simply highlight the button you want to remove and choose Remove from the bottom. Once you're done removing the toolbar buttons that no longer work or you don't need anymore, click Apply to apply the changes, and then press OK to return to your project. I'm assuming that most of you who are watching this video have already installed SWS Extension as well as ReaPack. I've already got videos on the installation of both of those, and I'll be sure to link those in the description below, but just for the sake of argument, I'll show you a few of those pages for those who are new to this. SWS Extension is a plugin or extension or whatever name you'd like to call it that provides some extra features for REAPER. This is one of the first things I recommend installing for new users of REAPER. It gives us plenty of new tools and utilities in our actions list, as well as a new menu entry in REAPER. Some of the things that I rely on for my day-to-day activity in REAPER come from SWS Extension. A few of my favorite things from SWS Extension is the AutoColor script, which allows me to automatically color tracks, markers, and regions based on naming conventions or other parameters that I set. So for example, any of my tracks that have the word drum in the title will be colored gray. Now as you can see in my project, I've only got one track here that's called drum, and the rest of them are parts of the drum set. I have another rule that says that all children of a parent item, and in this case all of my drum kit pieces are inside of a drums folder, the child tracks take on the color of the parent item. I know that we should mix with our ears and not our eyes, but it helps me to navigate a project a lot better if I can see familiar colors that draw my attention to specific parts of the project. One of my other favorite tools are marker utilities. I can add markers to different parts of the project to help me navigate even faster, but sometimes I may go back and add a marker in the wrong order. What I mean by that is here I have marker number 5, and at the end of the project I've got marker number 15. If I add a new marker between 5 and 6, let's do that now. I'll just call this marker for no reason. And this marker is number 16, so regardless of the physical placement of the markers, new markers are always added in numerical order. I can fix this by going to Extension, Marker Utilities, and Reorder Marker IDs. Now my newly placed marker is marker number 6 instead of 16. But since I don't actually need this marker, I'll right-click it and remove it, but now that causes another problem because my numbers are not in order. So to fix that once again, I can go back through the Extensions menu and choose the same action, but since that action was run recently, I can go to Actions, and we can see a handful of my recently used actions. Renumber Marker IDs is still here at the top, so I'll click that, and now my markers are back in the right order. There's plenty of other utilities in SWS Extension that'll help you out with Reaper. I just wanted to show you a couple of those while we were on the way. Now let's take a look at ReaPack. ReaPack is a package manager for Reaper. If you're a Linux user, you're probably pretty familiar with the package manager, but for those who don't know, it gives you a unified control panel for adding and removing third-party applications. In this case, we can use ReaPack to add scripts, extensions, themes, and other things to Reaper. Installation instructions for both ReaPack and SWS extensions are on their respective websites. I'll link my videos showing the installation for both of these, but just in case the installation method ever changes, it's always best to refer to the source for new installation instructions. That is a lot of S sounds and plosives in that sentence. When you're looking at both SWS Extension and ReaPack, always be sure to grab the right file for both your operating system and your architecture. I don't have a Mac, but I believe that all modern Macs are running ARM 64-bit processors since they've abandoned the Intel architecture. And if you're running Windows 11 or greater, you should be on a 64-bit operating system. Most Windows 10 installations are also 64-bit. We'll close this and go back to our Reaper project. And assuming that you've got both SWS Extension and ReaPack installed, the next step would be to add Sockmonkey's repository to ReaPack. To add a repository, we'll go to Extensions, ReaPack, and you can choose either Import Repositories or Manage Repositories. Before I do that, let's take a look at Sockmonkey's page for MomToggle. It's a bit of a strange name, but it was previously called Mouse Map Factory. But we'll take a look at MomToggle on the official Reaper website. I'll leave a link in the description to go straight to this page, but I'll also show you how I got here. We'll start by going to reaper.fm, if I can spell it. The dyslexia is strong today. Then we'll go to the forum, and we'll scroll down to ReaScript, JSFX, Reaper Plugin Extensions, and Developer Forum. Depending on when you see this video and when you search for it, that particular thread may be buried a few pages deep, so I find the easiest way to locate it is to click on Search This Forum at the top. That'll take you down to the bottom where you've got Search This Forum again, and let's type Sockmonkey. This will give us a listing of threads that either Sockmonkey started or participated in, and the one that we're looking for is MomToggle Mouse Modifier Toggle Action Generator. I'll click this to go there in the forum. And there's plenty of reading material about the script and plenty of discussion surrounding this, but what I'd like to pay attention to for the sake of this demonstration is Sockmonkey's repository to add to ReaPack. Let's scroll down in the first post, and at the bottom of our first post we can see ReaPack repository with the instructions to right-click and copy index URL. So I'll right-click this link and choose Copy Link, and let's go back to Reaper. We'll go to Extensions, ReaPack, and Manage Repositories. We can see in the Manage Repositories dialog that I've already got Sockmonkey's repository added. If you're adding this for the first time, choose Import, Import Repositories, and paste your link that we just copied from the forum. I'll move this up a bit and we can see that this link matches the one that I've got, so once again, I've already got the repository installed. So if you're newly adding this, click OK, and you should see Sockmonkey listed there. When you first add the repository, ReaPack will automatically refresh to load any new packages from the new developers that you've added. At this point, I can click Browse Packages, and I currently have a list of 1,970 packages. That's an awful lot to wade through, but if I filter for Sockmonkey, that'll give me a bit shorter list, and what I'm looking for is MomToggle Mouse Mod Toggle Action Generator. Right-click MomToggle. Now mine says reinstall because I've already got it installed. In your case, just choose Install and then Apply at the bottom right, and that should apply MomToggle in Reaper. The MomToggle script also requires RealmGUI, which is included with ReaPack. You should get a pop-up when you install MomToggle to let you know that you need this piece installed. I have a little bit of trouble filtering for this, so what I'd like to recommend you do to find that package is instead of searching for RealmGUI, search for the word DEAR, D-E-A-R. And that brings up RealmGUI, ReaScript binding for Dear IMGUI. If that's not installed already, right-click and choose Install, and just like with the Sockmonkey package, click Apply to install the package. That gets us everything that we need, and now we're ready to get started in building our new actions, so we can close out of our repositories here. And the first thing that you'll need to do is go to Options, Preferences, and Mouse Modifiers. Essentially what you'll need to do at this point is set up your default mouse modifiers however you like. If you've already got Reaper installed and you've been using it, most likely this is already set up the way that you like. But it's critical that you establish your default workflow and have that set up. The way that the mouse modifiers work is you have a context at the top, For example, when I'm slip editing, I like to left-click and drag the bottom half of a WAV file to move the contents of that WAV file without changing the endpoints. So to do that, I would go to Context, Media Item Bottom Half, and I can change my left drag action default to move those contents. But that's what I'd like to set up for my fast edit action and not my normal edit action. I've already got my normal edit set up the way that I want, so I'll go to Actions, Action List, and search for MOM. The script that I'm looking for is right here at the top. Script Sockmonkey 72 mom toggle mouse mod toggle generator.lua. I'll double click to run, and that opens the mom toggle dialog. It's important that you keep your mouse modifiers open while you're working in the mom toggle generator. So what I'd like to do now, since I've got my mouse modifiers set the way that I want for my normal editing behavior, is under Presets and Save, I'll choose Write a Preset. I'll need to give this a name, and it needs to be a name that I can find easily. So I'm going to preface this with LTAR for Let's Talk About Reaper, Normal Edit Mode. And confirm. What this has done is created a mouse modifier map that Reaper can load on demand. We still haven't created the action to call that, but this is a precursor to get to the next phase. Now I'll need to set up my mouse modifiers for fast edit mode. So one of the things that I'd like to change is Context, Media Item Bottom Half. For my left drag default action, I'll change this behavior by double clicking and go to Move Item Contents, ignoring Snap. Another option that I'd like to change is under the context, we'll go to Media Item Fade Intersection, left drag, and we'll change our default action. And we'll go to Move Both Fades, ignoring Snap. And it looks like I missed, so I'll try that again. We'll change my action to Move Both Fades, ignoring Snap. I'll apply that, and then back in the mom toggle utility, under Save, I'll write another preset, and I'll call this LTAR, again for Let's Talk About Reaper. You can put whatever prefix you'd like. I just recommend putting something that'll make it very easy for you to find when you're searching your actions list. And I'll change that to LTAR Fast Edit. And confirm. Now to test this, I'm going to take my mouse modifier context back to Media Item Bottom Half. Now right now we are on what we just created, which is to move the item contents ignoring Snap. Under Load in the mom toggle dialog, I'll click the button to the right, and I'd like to load the LTAR normal edit mode that we just created. Now we can see that my mouse modifier has changed over to the right, so we're good to go there. And let's test our other action. We'll go back to Load, and we'll choose the LTAR Fast Edit that we just created. And you can see that my mouse modifiers have changed. We've got a few steps left, and then we're ready to get back to editing. So right now I've got the LTAR Fast Edit selected, and what I'd like to do is build a one-shot action. So under my generators, I'll click Build One-Shot Action, and I'll give this a name. I'll call this LTAR Fast Edit Mode. And just to help differentiate this from the other, I'll add the word script at the end. There's probably a lot better way for me to name these, but I'm in a bit of a pinch, so this will work for now. And we'll confirm that. And we can see that this has written and registered that script so that it will now show up under the actions list. Now let's go back and let's load our normal edit action. And once again, we'll build a one-shot action for normal edit mode. I'll just change out my name here. Make sure everything is spelled correctly. And confirm. Now we've created our actions that we can load into our toolbar, so I'm safe to go ahead and close out of the mom toggle dialog as well as my mouse modifier preferences. We're almost ready to add our buttons to our toolbar, but we need to do a little bit more work to customize our script. We'll actually need to create 2 more actions that include the actions that we just made. I know this sounds complicated and it seems like a lot of work, but once you've done it once or twice, it's pretty quick and it definitely speeds up your workflow in the future. So let's get back to it. We'll go to Actions, Action List, and I'd like to create a new action. So after clicking New Action, click New Custom Action. We'll need to give our custom action a name, and I'll call this LTAR. Now I've used the word Fast Edit a whole lot of times, but I'm actually going to change the name of this time. So it's LTAR Slip Editing Mode. For my filter, I'm going to do a search for LTAR, and I'd like to take my Fast Edit Mode script that we created in the mom generator, left click and drag that to the right side. But I need to add a few more things. So for your filter, search for SWS/AW split, if I can spell it, split, and there it brings up SWS/AW split selected items at edit cursor with crossfade on left. I'll left click and drag that and make sure that that is the first action in my list. I'll explain why a bit later. The next option I'd like to look for is snapping. So after filtering for snapping, we can see snapping, disable snap. I always like to have my snapping disabled when I'm editing drums. If all of your drum hits were perfectly on the grid, you wouldn't be editing, so it makes sense to have snapping disabled for this function. So I'll left click and drag disable snap underneath split selected items at edit cursor with crossfade on left. Even though we've got an option to add a crossfade to the left of our splits, I also like to make sure that I'm enabling automatic crossfade on split. So for my filter, I'll just search for crossfade, and that's a little bit vague, so let's specify a bit more and search for auto crossfade. And there it is. Options, enable auto crossfades. I'll left click and drag that underneath snapping, disable snap, and then we should end with our custom script to enable the mouse modifiers for slip editing. I'll click OK, and now I've got my custom script, LTAR editing mode. We'll need to create one more for our normal editing mode. So again, we'll go to New Action, New Custom Action, and we'll need to give our action a name. So I'll call this LTAR Normal Editing Mode. I'll filter on the left for LTAR, and we can see a bit of a difference here. The items we created with the mom generator are prefixed with script, and the scripts that we're making now for our button actions are prefixed with custom. That can get a little bit confusing, but that's also why I changed my name up just a little bit. So now that I'm in this new action, I want to make sure to remove any action that it's showing over here already. So I'll get that out, and I'd like to drag over my normal edit mode, and that's actually the only one that I need for this. So I'll click OK. And we can see now I've got two custom actions that I just made for my normal editing mode and my slip editing mode. At this point, we can close out of the actions list, go up to our top toolbar, right click, choose Customize Toolbar, and let's scroll down to the bottom and add our new buttons. I've got a separator at the bottom, and I can highlight that and then choose Add, and let's add my slip editing mode button. I can actually add both of these at the same time. If you hold Control and click your other action, then choose Select and Close, and both of my scripts have been added to the bottom. They're a little bit out of order, so I'll take my slip editing mode and move it down below the separator, and then take my normal editing mode and move that down below the slip editing mode. Now we can see what it's going to look like here in the dialog, and I prefer to have double width buttons for these. So I'll highlight my slip editing mode button, right click, and choose text icon. In the dialog that pops up, I can place a check mark on double width toolbar button, and then you can rename this to whatever you'd like. I'll just call this slip editing. And OK. I'll do the same thing for my normal edit button. I'll right click, go to text icon, change it to double width, and I'll change my text to normal editing. Now I've got my buttons configured and I can press apply, and OK. I've got my new buttons listed, and these should work just the same way as your old fast edit and normal edit buttons did. So say for example, I'm going to focus on my snare top here, zoom in a bit, and here we've got a snare hit that's off a bit. Before we enter into slip editing mode, I said before that I would tell you why we placed a certain action at the top. Let's go back to our actions list, and if I take a look at my slip editing mode and edit this action, my first action in the list is split selected items at edit cursor with crossfade on left. That's something that I want to have happen every time that I left click when I'm in this mode. So instead of left clicking the button in the toolbar to activate it, I'd actually like to right click this button, and that arms the button. We can see by this rather annoying animation and by the tooltip that's popped up that this button is now armed for action. We can also see that crossfade on split is turned on, and my snapping is disabled. As I move my cursor over this snare hit, I have a letter A that suggests an action will happen when I click. So when I left click, I've split my snare and I've got a crossfade to the left of where I clicked. And now to edit this into position, I simply have to move my cursor down to the lower half of the media item, just as we specified in our action, and left click and drag. When I'm done doing my slip editing, I can click normal edit. That restores my mouse modifiers and disables the arm action. So we can see now that I can left click as much as I'd like, and it's not creating any splits or crossfades. Now there's one other thing that I'd like to show you in Reaper 7 that'll make your drum editing a little bit easier. In the drum editing and Reaper course, I showed you how to group all of your drum tracks together. Or more correctly, I showed you how to group your items together. This next feature is not something that's new to Reaper 7, but it was added in the later releases of Reaper 6, and that is track-based editing. So what I recommend now, instead of the old items-based method, instead of drawing a box around all of your drum media items and grouping them that way, I prefer to group them at the track level. In order to do that, highlight your first drum track, hold Shift, and click your last drum track. And you can access the grouping menu by pressing Shift-G or by going to Track, Track Grouping, and Track Grouping Parameters. Now I've already gotten my drum tracks grouped, but I'll click Select None and show you how to set this up again. You can name your groups if you'd like, that way if you go to the track grouping matrix you can easily tell what's what, so I'll click Rename and I'll just call this Drums. And what I'd like to enable is Media Razor Edit Lead and Media Razor Edit Follow. If you have any issues with colors, you can change the color of your group as indicated by the flags at the end of my tracks here. And that's it. I can close out of the track grouping matrix, and if you have multiple takes, you no longer have to explicitly group all of your media items downstream. Any edit that I perform on any member of this group will happen to all of them. So if I click here on my snare track, you can see that all of my tracks are selected. In your grouping menu up at the top, if you right-click, we can see that we have enabled selecting one item selects the group. And since we have these tracks grouped for media edits and razor edits, again, what we do to one affects the whole. So if I zoom in and just click on this track and split, we can see that it split all of my other tracks that are in that same group. I know that this was a bit of a long tutorial, but I wanted to make sure that even if you're using Reaper 7 instead of Reaper 6, that you're still able to follow a similar workflow to what I showed in the drum editing and Reaper course. I hope this helps. If you like the content you're seeing, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and you can support the channel further by clicking the Buy Me a Coffee, I like coffee, Super Thanks, or Patreon link below. And be sure to check us out on Discord and engage with other Reaper users. We'll see you next time. Congratulations, you made it all the way through the credits, and I could not think of a single funny thing to say at the end. See ya.